Hey guys, what's up? It's Mike Chen. Welcome to Eating Random Foods and Telling Random Scary Stories. A little long, but it pretty much describes the show. So I get this package. And if you guys don't know, there's a famous barbecue place in Memphis, Tennessee called Rendezvous. And I think I first saw this on Man vs. Food. My good buddy Adam Richmond went there. By the way, tried watching the new Man vs. Food, just not the same without Adam. Anyway, so here's what I got in the package. Some Rendezvous barbecue popcorn, barbecue sauce. I got their dry rub. This is really awesome. Charcoal mustard slaw, their famous baked beans, and a couple racks of their famous barbecue ribs. Family owned and operated since 1948. This looks like a good breakfast. Smell the pepper and the cumin. I'm making the basting concoction right now. Oh, that's good. Wow, that is a great sauce. Now let's go shower the ribs in this. Now it's coming alive with all those vibrant colors. You know, I've never been great with a brush because I'm not that artistic, so I don't like painting. Love doing this. Art that you can eventually eat. Last time I was this excited, I had a Wagyu steak sitting in front of me. Oh, this thing is just permeating smoke. You see that glorious smoke ring on here as well? I think these ribs got really lucky because they were able to bathe in this glorious sauce. It's vinegary, it's sweet, it's spicy. I'm kind of jealous these ribs got to roll around in it. Obviously, it's gonna be much better if you eat it at Rendezvous straight off the smoker, but I ain't complaining. You know, this sauce is so peppery too. And I'm glad I got 2 racks because 1 will definitely not be enough. Oh, these oven baked beans are glorious. They're not overly mushy, so you still get a nice chew and a slight crunch from the onions in here. Sweet and just like the ribs, ever so smoky. This is definitely gonna be a finger-licking good meal. Oh, that's nice. There's a huge kick in this coleslaw. Oh man. Wow, you will definitely feel that. And it's a mustardy kick, which is even better than a chili-is kick, especially in things like pickled vegetables and coleslaw. It's a different type of good ping, you know? And just a huge thank you to my buddy Julian who ordered this for me. And Julian and his wife, Michelle, they started an amazing charity, amazing nonprofit that I'm proud to be on the board of. It's called KultureCity. And the reason I joined after learning about it is because I didn't really know how many people there were out there that really had these sensory needs. So one thing KultureCity does is it partners with organizations like the NBA, the NHL, and they set up these sensory rooms and provide sensory bags so people who have sensory needs, like usually they wouldn't be able to handle such a loud environment. But now, because of KultureCity, these people and these kids are able to attend sporting events, concerts, just a remarkable organization. That's why I joined. But thanks again, Julian, for ordering this for me. It's so nice. And barbecue is one of those things I've been craving since those lockdown began. And of course, Seattle it's not really known for barbecue, but Memphis, oh yeah, I still remember my last rack of ribs that I ate over there. Today, I got some scary story for you guys. I know I haven't done one of these in a while. A lot of you guys have been asking for it, so I'm really excited to get into it, especially the story submission for this week. Oh my God, I was reading it, I was like, oh my God, this is like one of the scariest. And this is a real story. The person who sent it to me, they swear that it's a real story. If it's real, they should make a movie out of it. Oh, I just realized they have like whole entire white peppers in this sauce. Oh my God, that really numbs your mouth up. Some Memphis ribs, some Chinese chrysanthemum tea. It's like Memphis met China. All right, let's get to the stories. And we're gonna start off with a couple urban legends. And the first one is one of my all-time favorites. And it's one of the spookiest things I've ever heard in my life because it's real. Anyway, this is the story of the Okiku doll. The story takes place in 1918 in Hokkaido, Japan. By the way, best produce, best seafood in Japan, Hokkaido. There was a young man, he was 17 years old. He had a little sister called Kikuko. She was only 1943. So he went off to war, and when he came back, he wanted to bring her something. So he brought her a little doll. And this doll had a cute old kappa hairstyle. It's one of those hairstyles you see in traditional Japanese dolls where the hair comes down to the cheek with a short bang over the forehead. So he gave her this doll, and she loved it so much. She loved it so much that she took it everywhere. She even slept with the doll. Tragically, after catching a cold the following year, Kikuko died. So the family, wanting to remember the little girl, they put the doll in the family shrine and they prayed to it after her death. And they called the doll Okiku after their lost child. But after a while, they started to notice that something was strange with the doll. They noticed that the hair on the doll, which again, only came down to her cheek when Kikuko was alive, the hair slowly started to grow. And to the family, that was a sign that Kikuko's restless spirit was possessing the doll. I mean, to be honest, if that was my daughter, even though I loved her so much, if her doll's hair started growing, I'd be having a different type of barbecue, and you can be sure the Winchesters should be invited. Ooh, supernatural in Japan. That would be scary. Can you imagine like the Winchesters versus the girl from The Ring? Anyway, the family actually kept the doll for a couple of decades. Then finally in 1938, Kikuko's father donated the doll to Maininji Temple. And that's where the doll remains to this day. And you can actually go there today and see the doll. And the hair on the doll is still growing to this day, to the point where they actually have to trim the hair on the doll. And you might think that trimming the hair on a cursed, scary Japanese doll might be a little risky, but apparently one of the priests had a dream, and he dreamed that the cursed doll wants his hair cut. And one of the rules in life is that if a cursed Japanese doll wants a haircut, you give it a haircut. And what's even scarier is that the doll's hair has been scientifically examined, and they found that it was indeed human hair growing from the doll. And some say that if you look into the mouth of the doll, you can see that teeth are there now where it hasn't been before. So I guess if Chucky ever wanted a Japanese bride, that's where he could go. The next urban legend is also from Japan, and I chose it because I feel like right now, it's the perfect time for it. So consider this like a PSA warning. And this is the story of Kuchisake Una, or slit-mouthed woman. You know how everyone's walking around wearing a mask now? Well, in Japan, Kuchisake Una was a malevolent spirit who was mutilated and killed when she was alive. Now she's a spirit seeking vengeance wherever she goes. And her name comes from the deep, bloody gash that runs across her face, almost like a more extreme Joker. And she always walks around with a mask that covers up the scars. So one thing we do know about Kuchisake Una, she's really serious about not catching COVID. And there's different variations of what she was like when she was alive. Some say that she was the wife of a samurai who cheated on her husband. And when he found out, he sliced her with his sword, cutting her across the face. Others say that the mutilation came from a surgical procedure. Some say it was done by another woman who was so jealous of her beauty. But one thing everyone agrees on is that Kuchisake Una used to be a beautiful woman, but now she's one of the most terrifying spirits known in Japan because of what she does when she meets you. Because Kuchisake Una is known to sneak up on her victims in the dark. She'll tap them on the shoulder and ask them, "Do you think I'm pretty?" And if you say yes, she'll rip off her mask, revealing her terrifying face, and ask you again, "Do you still think I'm pretty?" And at this point, most people are peeing a little bit and will say yes to pretty much anything that's asked of them. But if you do answer yes, she'll walk away and you think you might have escaped. But then later that night, she'll follow you home and slaughter you in your sleep. But if you're honest and you say no, or you scream in terror, she'll slice you across the face right away with the knife she always carries around with her, so you'll look just like her. And apparently there are ways you can get away from her. If you say maybe, it somehow confuses her, then you can get away. When she asks you if she's pretty, if you just take the middle route, be like, I guess you're all right. I mean, I wouldn't date you, but I think you're okay. So if you say something like that, apparently she'll get really confused because it's like, it's not one of the answers she's expecting, and then you can get away. Or if you throw money or candy at her. So apparently Kuchisake Una has a sweet tooth and she's a gold digger. All right, the next story is sent in by Patrick from the Philippines. By the way, if you guys want to submit stories, don't send it to strictlydumpling@gmail anymore. Don't do that. I start getting too many emails, and then like my other emails, like it gets kind of lost. So send it to storyformikey@gmail.com. Storyformikey@gmail.com. And keep sending them in because reading these have been great. And Patrick sent in this story. I don't think it's a real story, but it is pretty scary, so I'm gonna tell it. So there's this doctor in the Philippines, and of course he works in a hospital. And finally, after a long day full of surgeries and dealing with patients, he finally gets off work. So he heads to the elevator and he sees that there's a woman in the elevator. She's pretty attractive. So he walks into the elevator, he smiles at her. She smiles back and they make a little small talk as the elevator door closes. Oh, those are good beans. Oh man, I never liked beans much, but these things, it's like I'm chewing sweet smoke. Doctor goes into the elevator. She's a beautiful woman. And they say hi to each other as the elevator door started to close. When the doctor turned around facing the elevator door, he saw a young boy in a hospital gown running to the elevator, gesturing for them to hold the door for him. But instead, the doctor frantically pushed the door close button, so the door closed right before the boy got to the elevator. So after the door closed, the woman looks at the doctor and she's kind of perplexed. She's like, why didn't you wait for the little boy? That's so rude of you. The doctor looks at her and he says, that wasn't a little boy. He had a red colored tag on his wrist. So the woman asked him, so what does that mean? And the doctor says, we only put those red tags on people who have already died. And right away, the doctor could see the blood flush out of the woman's face. She was terrified from hearing what he just said, but the doctor reassured her and said, it's okay. He didn't make it to the elevator. We're safe now. But the woman didn't say anything. She just looked down at her feet and slowly revealing a red tag. Then she looked at the doctor and said, you mean something like this? I almost love the size more than I love these ribs. I've been talking, I haven't been able to like properly focus on eating these ribs. Ah, they're kind of getting cold. I'm so sad. All right, the next story is submitted by Whitney Sullivan. Thank you so much for the story, Whitney. It is truly terrifying. So Whitney writes that when she was 5 years old, like many little kids, she had an imaginary friend. And her imaginary friend's name was Alice. And of course, she told her mom about her imaginary friend Alice, and her mom didn't really think anything of it. But her mom started to complain that Whitney was using the bathroom too much late at night. But Whitney told her mom that she never used the bathroom late at night. So one night, Whitney's mom decided to stay up and catch Whitney in the act. So late one night, Whitney's mom was staying up and she hears the sound of little feet running across the living room. And how their house was structured was that Whitney had a room, her little 2-year-old sister had a room, the middle was the living room, and her mom's room was right next to the bathroom across the living room. So you had to cross the living room to get to the bathroom. So her mom hears the little pa sound of the feet running to the bathroom. So she yells out, Whitney, stop going to the bathroom so late at night. First of all, Whitney, what's your mom not wanting you to go to the bathroom? I mean, when you gotta go, you gotta go. Anyway, when she yelled at Whitney, Whitney woke up and came out of her room and said, I'm not using the bathroom. So her mom comes out of her bedroom and Whitney, of course, came out of her bedroom and they both went to the bathroom. But they both see that the bathroom light was on. So they both went to the bathroom and looked inside. And there in the bathroom was a little girl standing on the stool that Whitney uses to brush her teeth. A little girl was standing on the stool brushing her hair. And after she brushed it a few times, she stopped mid-brush and turned around and looked at them. That's when Whitney and her mom noticed that the girl had no face. Immediately, Whitney's mom grabbed her younger sister, and they left the place that night, which I really commend her. Like, that's a normal reaction. My parents would be like, oh, it's a ghost, but we pay too much rent, so yeah, it's okay. Tomorrow we'll just cook some garlic and it'll go away. And the story doesn't end there. So 14 years later, when Whitney was 19 years old, and that's the age she got her first apartment. So she was there with a bunch of her friends just goofing around on the deck. All of a sudden, one of her friends, Adam, quieted everybody down and said, hey, shh. You guys hear that? And no one knew what Adam was talking about, so they all stayed quiet and they listened. And it sounded like a voice calling out Whitney's name. It was a really soft whisper that seemed to come from the other side of a wall of bushes. So Adam asks Whitney what's on the other side of these bushes. And apparently it was a cemetery. So these being young kids and being really adventurous, so they decided to investigate and see where the voice was coming from. So they go into the cemetery and the voice got louder and louder. So they're thinking at this point it's a prank, it's one of their friends who's pranking them doing this. So they go further into the cemetery. All of a sudden they see a small figure running. So they take off after it. Then the small figure runs to a headstone, stops, and disappears. So they looked at the headstone to see who it belonged to, then laughed the whole thing off and went back to the house, thinking maybe it was just their imagination or a prank. So the next week, Whitney's home with her mom and she's telling her mom the story, and her mom asks her, what name did you see on the tombstone? And Whitney said, Alice Shoemaker. Right then, her mom's face went completely pale and she dropped the glass she was drinking out of and it shattered on the floor. So then her mom reminded Whitney of her old imaginary friend and what happened the night they all ran out of the house. But Whitney just laughed and said it was just a coincidence that her imaginary friend back at the time was named Alice and the tombstone said Alice Shoemaker, just a coincidence. But her mom said no and proceeded to tell her that the night they ran out of the house was the last night they ever stayed in that home because the next day they packed up and moved. And when her mom told the landlord why they're moving, the landlord wasn't really shocked at all and said that no family with kids ever stayed too long in that apartment unit. Because in 1982, a little 7-year-old girl drowned in her bathtub in that apartment unit. Her name? Alice Shoemaker. I don't know, Whitney, I'm all big on making friends, but I really wouldn't want a friend where if I want to communicate with her, I'd have to use a Ouija board. I think you should definitely burn some sage or something because I think that ghost girl will be following you right now. I'm all about helping people and saving people, but if I ever walk by a cemetery or an abandoned building or a creepy looking house and I hear a kid crying, or a kid laughing or any sort of display of emotion, I'm not investigating it. I'm not. I wish it all the best. I don't want to know. I'm not going to look for the source of the laughter or the crying. I mean, I don't know how a little kid ghost can kill you, but I mean, we've all seen movies with these ghosts, like the little girl in The Sixth Sense throwing up on the little boy that's just trying to help her. I don't want any ghost vomit. I don't want any little kid ghost asking me to play in another dimension or opening some gates of hell that I don't really want to pass through. And I would feel really bad if that was indeed a kid, a real kid crying in a cemetery that really needed help. But we've all got rules to live by and that's mine. Again, thank you so much for that story, Whitney. That was indeed terrifying. Again, story submissions to storyformikey@gmail.com. I know some of you might be scared right now, so here's some videos of delicious dumplings. Hopefully the feeling of hunger is gonna take over the feeling of fright. And honestly, dumplings are really the cure-all for everything. If I was gonna indeed walk into a haunted house or a creepy cemetery, I'd bring a basket of dumplings, either to offer it as a bribe for the ghost to not kill me or a really good last meal. As always, guys, thank you all so much for watching. See you later.